The corner is, again, a guy who doesn't necessarily fit the physical mold, but Tom, 5'8", 180-ish pounds, Marcus Jones out of Houston. He won the Paul Hornung Award as the most versatile player in college football. He returns kicks. He was a gadget player offensively, scrappy, little guy who throws his body around, has great ball skills. And I think he's the kind of athlete who would be able to run with those little water bug receivers in Miami.
And that's a really interesting question because that's as a corner or a slot corner. The other thing you could look at if you wanted to continue on the offensive side of the ball in adding speed, who's your third down back right now? Okay, Brandon Bolden is back this year or has not been received?
No, he's in Vegas with Josh McDaniels.
My bad.
Patriots took Marcus Jones from Houston.
Oh, there's your guy, Phil. All right.
So this guy is a prototypical Patriot, even though he does not have the size that usually they would draft. He flies. He is a phenomenal athlete. He wasn't able to test during the draft buildup this year because he was dealing with injury. But versatility. The more you can do. This is the ultimate Patriot because, again, he'll return kicks for you. He could be electric in that regard, I think, right away. I think he'd be used as a slot corner if he has to travel outside with Jalen Waddle, with Tyreek Hill. I think he's a good matchup player for those guys because even if you run a 4-3, if you're 6'1", I think it's really hard to change direction with those players. This guy shouldn't have any issue with that. Accelerates really well, great change of direction based on what we've seen on tape. And so this is the most exciting pick of the draft if you're a Patriots fan. Right?
It's like oxygen being pumped into this room.
This guy, if you had asked me before the draft, if you had asked me the most enjoyable player that I think I watched during the entire process, it might be Marcus.
Why? As a corner, as a cover guy, or all the things that he
Reckless abandon. Flies downhill, throws his body into people. He kills people near the line of scrimmage. He clicks and closes, if you want to use a scouting term, really abruptly. The special team stuff is a lot of fun because when he has the ball in his hands in the open field, he is dynamic. That's why Houston used him offensively, too. I don't know if he'd be able to play any offense for the Patriots if you throw him in the slot for the Patriots. But we know, Bert, that they have no problem doing that if the guy has that ability.
Yeah, and I mean, I think corner was one of the spots that you wanted to see some level of improvement with. If he's strictly a slot corner, that's fine. What are you going to do with Jonathan Jones? I think that becomes a question now. Obviously, Malcolm Butler, can he still play outside? Does he still have the feet to be able to play outside? But I think you just needed to get depth in the secondary. You need to be able to cover people. And so this is a nice piece. Again, I sort of wish they addressed the second level of the defense, and maybe they will here in their next few picks. But I think the corner is something I think we all wanted them to address somewhere early on.
When we look at these second and third round picks through the last few years, so many of them have redshirted or done apprenticeships. Ronnie Perkins and Anthony Jennings. Ronnie Perkins didn't play last year. Anthony Jennings basically was injured, and it was his second year, didn't play at all. So we're looking at players who might not be on the field. Could you envision Marcus Jones being a player who ends up having that special teams value and starts to assimilate into the regular defense?
Yeah, I think he's a game day player right away, even as a third round pick, and we've seen some of those guys just struggle to gain roles. I just think he's too athletic in a secondary that doesn't have enough depth right now. It doesn't have enough juice, quite frankly.
Quarterback?
Albert Breer's got his finger
Malik
up.
Willis finally
Malik
going?
Willis to the Titans.
Oh,
okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Took you long enough, Mike Vrabel. But there goes maybe the most physically gifted quarterback in the class all the way in the third round to the Titans. I just think with Jones, and Breer brings up a good point, Jonathan Jones is still on the roster. He's their slot corner. He's one of their best defensive players probably right now. When you go to Miami, Miami has two little guys you have to track all over the field that run 4-3s. Now you have two similarly sized corners to match with those players. You're going to have to play man-to-man at some point, Giles. It can't all be zone. I think it'll be more zone than it has been in years past. But you got to play man at some point, and I think he could be a factor when it comes to playing those guys down in Miami.
A simpleton like myself, though, would be a little apprehensive just because when the Patriots took a second-round cornerback who returned punts, that didn't really turn out so well with Cyrus Jones.
Yes.
You're telling us that you don't have to worry.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. I mean, I have no idea.
You have higher hopes.
He could end up having a Cyrus Jones type of career. He got injured, and he had a rough go of it the first couple of years there. But I just would say, if you're looking for speed, if you're looking for playmaking ability, if you're looking for somebody who can make an explosive play, really in any facet of the game, this guy obviously, it would be special teams and defense. Again, he has really good ball skills as a corner. This is someone who has that potential. So it's not a guard. It's not a defensive tackle. It's not, a splash play receiver. Although, listen, they've now drafted two fast guys today. I think that was something that was important on both sides of the ball.
And at 5'8", did you say he was?
5'8", I think he's 175 is what he measured pre-draft.
That's a good hit.
I mean, that hit right there, that's a
hit.
Ben Watson type play. Chase him down, knock the ball out as soon as he gets to the goal line. He is really physical, and it may get him into trouble. Listen, he was dealing with injury coming into the draft, right? I think it's because the guy plays like he's 250 pounds when the reality is he's 175. I admire that style of play, but it might not lead to, epic levels of durability at the pro
You know
level.
what you see here, though, and I think this is obvious just watching him, Phil. It's like what you're talking about, the aggression, but it also looks like targeted aggression. It looks like he's got ball skills and he's got instincts. I mean, he's moving out there fast. He's making plays on the ball. It looks like he can catch it. That's one thing they definitely need, right, is more playmaking on the defensive side of the ball, especially with a guy who was the best on the defense at making plays in the ball last year, and J.C. Jackson gone.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how their corner depth chart would look if you hit them with the truth serum right now. Would it be Jalen Mills on one side and Malcolm Butler on the other to begin with, and then you're just going to mix in Jonathan Jones and Kyle Duggar, Devin McCourty, Adrian Phillips? I mean, those are, as much as we've talked about a lack of speed, those are smart and capable and veteran players in your secondary. Additionally, you have Joanne Williams. Maybe the light goes on and he turns into that lanky corner. I wouldn't bet on that. But you also have Miles Bryant back there.
Sure.
And now you have Marcus Jones. So is that a compliment?
It's a good question, just how they utilize all that depth. They added a player, for instance, this offseason, and now his name's escaping, Terrence Mitchell, the veteran corner who started NFL games, and I think he'll make the roster, but I wouldn't say he's any guarantee to make the roster. So I think you just need to throw things at the wall, Tom, at that position, and hope you end up with a high-caliber athlete and a high-end starter, because that's really what you need.
Let me ask you this. If the Patriots, Giles, were going to take a corner, a wide receiver, and a guard, I'm wondering if they still could have had a guard, Giles or Phil, at this juncture in the draft. Or are the good guards gone? The good replacements, plug-and-play guys, are they gone at this point?
I look at the Central Michigan kid.
Luke Ledecky.
No, not Ledecky. I mean,
Oh, you're talking about the tackle.
But there are some that believe Ryman could play inside. I did talk to a couple people about like the guard market earlier today, and I said, is there a cliff? Because that's one reason why you would take Cole Strange where they took him, is because maybe there's a cliff at the position and you feel like once that guy's gone, there's nothing left. And it came up like, okay, like the Central Michigan guys, both those guys can play inside. They were the tackles in college. They both had the ability to play inside. Like you said, Ledecky actually projects inside. But maybe Rahman would have been someone where you say, okay, we'll start him at guard, and then maybe eventually he grows into being your left tackle or your right tackle.
Right. Yeah, it's actually interesting. I spoke to one personnel executive today who thought that the depth at corner and your ability to get a starting level corner on day 2, it actually ran deeper into the draft than your ability to get a starting level guard. That surprised me, because usually it's so much easier to find guards.
See, hit your wagon of that. I mean, if they wanted to go one way or the other, I mean, I think everyone would have said, hey, Trent McDuffie at the top and then a guard in the 3rd round, sandwiched around a wide receiver who can run a 4.28. I think people would feel differently.
They probably, I think they would have enjoyed that a little bit more than all the conversations we've had about what they did in the first round. So anyways, at 85 overall was the Patriots taking Marcus Jones out of Houston. They've got the 94th pick as well.